just go over a little bit of business. One thing to let the, excuse me.
Well, I have a couple of questions for Ms.
Excuse me. Okay.
To what do you attribute the constant barrage of the media on climate change? And, I mean, why are they alarming? Do you have any suggestions as to why they do that?
Well, I guess the short, snappy answer would be because they're alarmists. Who was it that had it? Anne Murray had a song about, we sure could use a little good news today, about all you hear is the bad news and the extreme stuff. There's a lot of money being handed out for research and for government grants and for government agencies themselves, and you know, I don't think it's a conspiracy, but I think there's a general agreement that you emphasize the disastrous part of something. And the interesting thing is that these things do change. I have an interesting newspaper item from where it talks about the Arctic and how the ice is melting, the Northwest Passage is opening up. They're worried about polar bears, and they haven't seen summers like this in a long time. And it was written in 1922. When I was in grad school in the 70s, the coming ice age was all the talk, and then in the late 70s it changed and things started warming up, and then it was all about global warming, and now things have leveled off or gone down, and people are calling it the pause. It's only a pause. It's been 18 years now, and the temperatures haven't gone up, but they're going to start up again. I don't know.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to say was that in 1990 I worked part-time for the EPA in Corvallis, and I was inputting all kinds of precipitation and temperature minimum and maximums around the world. And at that time I didn't really understand the idea of computer modeling, but I knew that that was going to feed into a computer modeling center. And there were decades, I mean, I had pages and pages of information that I was inputting, and there were decades sometimes when nothing was available in a certain part of the world, or the information would be so scattered that you couldn't possibly make generalizations about things, and most of the information that I did input was within the last 75 years.
Well, yeah, and then the other problem is the models themselves. I mean, they're glorified weather prediction models, and I think we all know that the weather isn't predicted that well for 5 or 10 days out. We really can't simulate the complexity of the atmosphere yet. Maybe someday we will, but we're not even close.
I had one comment. Is it appears that the global warming alarmists are their primary motivation is more political control and more economic control in the country. Because even if there were to be global warming, which you have proven that there is not, I think that the free market could take care of it much better than government planning could.
I agree.
I think you got to keep science separate from politics.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's why we have a scientist.
What cause, if any, is oil drilling?
What causes what?
Oil drilling. What effect does oil drilling have on any of your data? Because if every action has a reaction, I've always wondered when you're taking something out of the ground and then there's nothing there, what's it going to do?
Well, I think even when you take out a sizable quantity of something, compared to the Earth itself, it's still pretty tiny, I think.
But it has to come from somewhere. And it does change, and it's when you have a different density. It has a different viscosity. Does mud have different viscosity than oil? Certainly.
Oh yeah, certainly there's a change, and on a small scale you'd see it.
Like this, it would like be an equalizer. I just think it must have something to do with earthquakes, and I've always thought that it would add to the fault lines, which...
Maybe that's a geologist, I guess.
rise in carbon dioxide.
Yes.
And I know that they're concerned with acidification of the ocean and the fact that certain organisms cannot make their shells, and coral reefs are suffering some damage. And I just wonder what your opinion of that is.
I've read quite a bit about that. I don't consider myself to be an expert, but when it comes to the damage to the coral reefs, what I've seen is that there's stronger evidence for other kinds of human impacts, like pesticides and other chemicals that are put into the water that are more likely to cause problems, more likely than... Apparently the coral can adapt pretty well to changes in temperature, and it has for millennia, but when you put in foreign agents into the water, that tends to have a more profound effect.
My age, and I believe
Well,
they credit
yeah, they talk about acidification, but the ocean is on the alkaline side of neutral. So the other thing is that's one of those numbers that are measurements that we really don't have data going back very far. So we can't really know, I don't think.
Any other questions?
May I ask you a question on a completely different topic? The Welcome to Corvallis brochure talks about how, and I know somebody also who was in a climatology class 40 years ago in San Jose, who said that they learned about this too. The reason Corvallis has a cooler temperature than the rest of the valley is because there's a hole in the mountains that lets in the ocean air. And I can't find anybody in Corvallis who knows where that hole in the mountains, a gap in the mountains. Do you know where that gap is?
Sure. It's just north of Mary's Peak.
Yes.
Okay.
What it does, and there's several gaps. There's the Van Duzer corridor up west of Salem. There's a small one near Eugene, and in all those cases they allow marine air to come into the valley sooner than it does in other parts of the valley. So our heat waves tend to end when we get that surge of marine air, and and ours is. If you go out to Philomath and look westward, you can see Mary's Peak and mountains over here, and a big drop off, and that's the gap. When I was at OSU, we decided to have a contest to name that wind, because a lot of places, like they have Santa Ana winds and Chinooks in the Rockies and Föhn winds in the Alps, and so we had a contest, and the winning entry, and this is a panel of expert judges, the winning entry was Mariana winds, because it comes from the direction of Mary's Peak and tends to follow the Marys River. So.
I got a call from 20 other than that.
Is there any good place to
Whatever.
look at it? Is there any good place to just go look at it from up on high or anything?
It's better just to see it from Philomath, because you get to a clear spot where you can see to the west and you can see it there.
George, you can see it on the days when the fog bank comes in that far.
Oh, that's true. You can see it from Mary's Peak on
You go up
those
to
days.
Starlight
Yeah,
Village and stuff there, you can see all that.
yeah.
You can also see it from Ivy Hill near Chip Ross Park.
Oh, okay.
Ivy Hill.
You know.
Okay, we're gonna have to move
far?
on.